When you first open Gamemaker Studio, you'll have this panel appear and it'll give you various things you can do. You can import old projects from previous versions of Gamemaker, including Gamemaker 8.1, 6, and so on, all the way back. It does a pretty good job of bringing them up to scratch. I've made a project directory for my Gamemaker projects in my external hard drive, and I'm just going to do an example project for this Patreon. This will be the first video of many, and maybe you'll get one or two of these a month if you've subscribed for the $1 Patreon tier. So I'm not importing, I'm actually creating a new, should be, so example project. Okay. Now, if you're new to Gamemaker, which I assume you will be if you already use Gamemaker, then I'll just show you some of the conventions I use to keep a tidy workflow. So on my sprites, I'll start with SPR underscore and then name my sprite with all lowercase. The only time I use uppercase is for maybe arrays. I'll use camel case for arrays, but everything else I do underscore and lowercase. It just helps define things. I also like to make up constants and things like that. So I'm just going to show you sprites. So sprite character, and you can load a sprite from here if you've got any actual Gamemaker sprite files or images. So let's see what I've got. I've maybe got some stuff that I've made recently. Here's a little palette that I made. Double click on that and then you can come in and zoom in here a few times, put the grid on, and the sprite editor in Gamemaker 1.4 isn't the best. They did some improvement in 2.0, but I do advise using something else for Gamemaker sprites. I do have graphic scale, which I got free from graphic scale. So I'll just show you a bit of that, and I do have a sprite, which is really good for animation stuff. Graphic scale, make a 32 by 32 sprite, 24-bit full color, or you can do 8-bit, 4-bit, which is pretty cool. I'll go for 8-bit, see what happens. Yeah, and you can define your own colors based on that. And this will let me limit the color palette. So I still get the full range of colours, but I can limit the colour palette to only 256 colours. I think I can also, I'll likely be able to change that somewhere. I've yet to find what that is to change the mode. I'll create a new file and let's go for 16 colours as a limitation, and that'll get us a pretty good limited palette if you're making simple characters. I like to use a graphics pen, so I use a Wacom. And then I can come in here and define my colours. This is probably a better way to choose your colours. So by A, I don't think it actually limited me there, did it? Or maybe I've used the wrong. Maybe I used the wrong one. Here we go. This is the one. So I'll zoom in. I can make my sprites here, make icons and all that kind of things. I like to use the line tool because it works just the same as putting dots around. Well, not in this it doesn't, but in most other ones it does. I just choose a colour. I can edit that colour. Now, the good thing about working with these limited colours is you can go ahead and change them as you work. Still got these lines on. These lines are pretty annoying actually. Must be a straight line somewhere. So I'm fairly new to graphic scale. I just downloaded this the other day. Assuming it's straightforward, it's free. Whereas A Sprite here. I've been using this a lot lately, so um, I'm making this little homeless man game. This is a homeless Higgy, and this is his little color palette. And this is a palette that I made for. Is this actually his palette? I wonder. I think it is. Looks like it. I lost now, or maybe I've just edited this from a raw palette. But you can add various layers in here. The layer, and you can draw some things in. Yeah, I think this is the palette that I've ended up with, but it's not a fixed palette. This so you can change the mode here. This is RGB color, which means these are all changeable. Whereas if you use index color, which kind of I prefer to keep the colors consistent. Sprite, color mode, index, no dithering. You can see how some of that was lost there. Just a little bit. One of these colors was lost. And I guess that's down to, I don't really know why it's down there, but yeah, it's just faded some of the colours out, because it's probably picked the closest colours here, and it's just missing a few. Yeah, we've been limited to these colours, so I can do get palette from document, palette from current sprite, and then I can create how many colours I want. So I'll go for 64. Let's see, how many have I used here? 6. Yeah, 64 colours. That's cool. So it's made up this palette based on what I've used here. So that's nice. And it means if I've got an indexed no dithering, then I can change these colours. To change a colour, you just click on this one, and you can see that where I've used this colour, I can actually change it on the fly, which is a really nice feature for making fine-tune adjustments later, instead of having to draw them in or fill them in. I've got this little grey colour here. I think it's on his hat. It's on his hat. I can still pick colours, which is nice, using the Alt key. So I pick the colour, it's that one. And I can brighten it up a bit. So that's pretty nice. Well, let's just grab that one and make that make more sense. Oh, it should be darker. Right, okay, so nice and dark. Something like that. So yeah, once you've got your character, just save him. Save as... And I can still save him as a PNG, which is great. So it's very flexible. Homeless Higgy, PNG, overwrite, yeah, that's fine. And I'm just going to save this file because I'm quite happy with it. I can continue working there. So if I want to add a sprite after this one, oh, let's cancel that, check that out. Add from file, so I'm going to add one. I'm going to find little homeless Higgy. I just think where I put it. Sorry about any background noise, folks. So we've got a malfunctioning TV that likes to turn itself up and down. Oh my god, right, I had no idea where I've put this, so that must be this PC. Gamemaker projects. And ain't got a home source files. Homeless Higgy, there he is. So it asked me, do I want to keep the original size? And it's going to squeeze it in here. Use new size. Use the new size and I'll place it in center. And there we go. So I can keep both images however I want to use them. Now this is image 0, this is image 1. This is the access point, which is kind of useful. I always like to put it in the center 90% of the time, unless I'm making some kind of tile, then I like to have it at the bottom left. You can make collision masks, so precise collision checking basically takes away all the alpha, but you can turn that on, modify mask, and you can play with this alpha setting. for the tolerance. You can see it's like no tolerance there, and it's detecting. Do that for, you can do it for like a separate collision mask for each image. It's a bit of an overhead, but basically means that he's got precise collision on his shape for every frame. But that's really expensive. Best thing you want to do is maybe go for rectangle, and you don't get the option of separate there. But yeah, it's just a case of being clever with your collisions. Okay, so once you've got your guy there, you can also move that around, choose him and slide him down. And we don't really need that, so we can just delete that as well. So I can just press delete. And with characters, I do like to have the cursor just at their feet, or maybe at the bottom center. So I can center it, then I can make y equals the height, which is 63. Okay. So when you're creating an object, right click, create object. And again, I'll use the name convention OBJ. Some people use O, but then with sprites, some people use S, but then with sounds, they might use M for music or something. But I like to use the first three letters of the type. So an object is where you put your code. So this will be OBJ character. I'm going to put my sprite here. You can see I've made his name correspond as well. That just keeps it tidy. Don't worry about these just yet. Solid makes it stop when it moves into something else. It will stop moving. Persistent means it will be in every room. So if you put it in room 1 and you don't put it in room 2 or room 3 or room 4, it will stay there. If you put it in room 1, when you move to room 2, he'll remain. He's persistent, basically. The only way to get rid of him is to kill him off and respawn him. Uses physics is for your fancy physics stuff, which is good fun to play with, but we'll cover that in a more advanced section later. This is just for basics. Now, with Gamemaker 1.4, you do get the option of drag and drop, which is using these icons, or you use code. First, you need an event. So what happens when the object's created is any of these things can happen. And what I really like to do is just grab some code and plop some code in. So this just does, it can do any of these things. These little quick icons do a bit of code. Sorry about the background noise, we've got cars and stuff come by, and you might pick that up. But so as soon as the object is created, so you put it in the room, you start the game, it fires off this event and it does these actions. Now the action I want it to do, so if I put 3 strikes here, I can put in some kind of comment. So I'll write comment, and you will actually see that comment, this does stuff. Okay, so when I check that out, you can see that it is comment, this does stuff, and you don't even need the word comment, you can just do this does stuff. Right, anything after that, 2 slashes is enough for a comment. So you could give yourself some information about the bit of code. So this is just a comment. And if I use slash and star, anything that goes after this doesn't matter. Just be sure I close it off with star and slash, because if I leave that open and I start doing code, so if I do something like draw text 00 hello Patreons. Oh, Patreons, can't spell right, Patreons. Okay, now close that off. Colon, don't always need the colon, but it's good practice. So if I forgot to close this off, what happens is everything beyond there doesn't get executed. So I just need to make sure that I have that to stop all this. And this could be a description about the kind of game I'm going to make. This is a project for my Patreons. A beginner's guide to Gamemaker. Alright. We'll draw text, hello Patreons, and that's all that will happen. But you can't do draw text in a start event, a create event, because it's not designed to draw stuff. It's just designed to do your variables and set up your arrays mainly. That's all I really use it for. So I could type something like message equals, and then bring that in there. So I'll just cut that out, pop that there, take away those, colon. So message now holds this string, and the variables in Gamemaker are dynamic. You don't have to say, this is going to be a string. You just do the variable, do this, and then it automatically knows that message is a string, and it allocates the memory appropriately. So you're fine. And then I can draw text message, but I don't want this here. I want this in another event called the draw event. Now there's draw GUI, which will draw, like a user interface. It will draw in the screen space of your game, but it can get fiddly when you start rescaling and stuff. So I like draw. And then if you want it to be, the most frontmost thing, like for a UI, you just change the depth to minus very high value. So I'll change it to minus 99999, and that gives me loads of different slots before that to put other things, especially things in the game which will likely be drawn at depth 0 to, give or take, depending where you want it. You can give things different depth. But this basically brings it very close to me. Any big negative value makes it more like a UI or screen type thing if you want a blood effect, or some rain on the screen, or just like your stats and stuff. So I'm going to draw, and again I'm going to drag in some code with this and do 3 strikes and do this will draw some UI stuff. Okay, so you'll see that this will draw some UI stuff, and I can carry on in there. Alternatively, if I don't want to do a comment here, with drag and drop there is this little comment. I can do this does UI stuff, and you can see that there. Then I don't have to worry about it here. I can just put nothing in there, and it will say execute a piece of code by default. So you might want to just do something like that, just to make it nice, and then you get your comment there. But it's always nice to see what it does. So this is going to draw debug info, which I always like, and then you'd do something like, so draw text message, of course, draw text 0, so that's the X position from the top left of the screen, and the next comma is Y position from top left of the screen, so it's 0 at the top, and it's the height of the screen at the bottom. So I'm going to draw about 20 pixels apart. I'm going to draw the string of mouse X, so that I know the X position, and to show that that is the X, I'm just going to put in here mouse X, and a little colon, a little space, and then plus. So it's going to do this string and then add this string onto the end of it. Okay, and I should do the same for the Y position. So these are just good little things to have, so you know where your positioning is. When you start creating a game and want to know where things are, then it's good to know these values. Mouse X and mouse Y. I'll do my little colons at the end. I always forget, and you will notice me forget. Or just shout, there's a monster over your shoulder, and I'll fix those. Okay, so that's that. Draw debug info. So it creates this message in the start event and in the draw cycles, happens every cycle. Oh, also, we need to create a room. So rooms, create room, and I'll call this, again, same naming kind of convention, but I like to keep the whole word room. It's only a 4-letter word. I always try and keep 3 or 4-letter words as a suffix to your, object or whatever it might be. So room, this would be test room, or just room test is fine. The height and width, I like 960 by 540 because it's half HD, and you get nice pixel clarity that's And it's just nice. It's a bit old school. And I'll put that to 60. I think that's good. Change the background to something dark grey. So I'll just define a custom colour. Okay. The grid on and off here. And I'll just bring that over here. It's a shame Gamemaker doesn't have any sort of drag and drop like Photoshop here where it just snaps and then fills this area. That would be really nice. But anyway, we're on to Studio 2 now, and there's a lot more funky stuff that does. Middle mouse, you can move this here, scroll wheel to zoom in, and you can choose backgrounds. Views are like looking areas, physics, any sort of global physics control, and all that stuff. So we're just going to work with the objects. So we've got our character, we'll bring him in here, and watch what happens. So he's got a sprite assigned to him, but he's also got a draw event. So when I play this, what's going to happen is the draw is going to overtake what happens with the sprite. So all you're going to see is that, and that's very dark, let's change that to white. But all you see is the actual draw, set color. You can do shift and space to see the options here. And then C underscore gives you color options. And let's go for green. In fact, let's go for lime. Alright. So color, draw the text, and draw the mouse positions. Okay, so we never saw the character being drawn there, and that's because this draw event has replaced what's been shown. If there's no draw event, it draws the sprite by default, unless you tell it not to. But to draw the sprite, we actually have to do draw sprite. And you can see the parameters here: sprite, sub image, which is like if he's got animation, that's frame 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And the position. So I'm just going to draw sprite, SPR underscore shift and space, control and space, and I can see my options. Press enter. 0 for the subframe. Doesn't matter if he's animated, you can put it to -1 and it will animate through. But I do like to control this, so I have usually a variable called FRM for frame. Frame's quite big. FRM, I got so used to using FRM for the frame number. That's something I use. I do like to keep to small naming conventions where possible. So frame number, we go. In fact, let's do that. Frame, and then his X and Y positions. And his X and Y I can update, and I will make them equal the mouse positions. So I can do X equals mouse X and Y equals mouse Y. Now the reason they are in red is because they're built-in variables. X and Y is the position of this object in the screen, and they're inherent. Things like, other things that are inherent is score. It's a global thing, you can control that anywhere, but it's a one-off thing for the whole game. You've got lives, health, health. They're just like global variables that you can use from any object, and then you can control them. But I do like to make everything fairly local, specific to the object. So especially this FRM. So X equals mouse, X mouse Y, and I will put a comment in. I'll say make the sprite go where the mouse is. I'll put a comment in here. Draw the character with the current FRM frame value or sub image. Now this makes it really clear for me to know what's going on, and if I give this to someone else, they know exactly what's going on as well. So we've got the draw debug info, we've got the draw the sprite, and we've got draw make the sprite go where the mouse is. Okay, so the only thing I need to initialize here is this FRM, because I've yet to do that, and it will cough up an error. So FRM equals 0, and I'll just put a comment, the frame number variable. Just don't need variable, just the frame number. And that's just a message, that's obvious what it does. Okay, cool. So we're good to go. We should be able to draw the sprite as well as the debug info. Okay, let's see what happens. Alright, so we got to draw the text there and we got to draw the sprite. And he's following the mouse. So that's pretty cool. Now he's moving quite fast, so we might want to slow him down. I'm just going to save this. So he's moving quite fast. He's moving exactly where the mouse is. So let's say we want to move him slow. We could do x equals lerp x to the mouse x at a speed of 0.5, right? This doesn't make any sense right now, but let's see what it does first. Always see what it does first, then it will make sense. And in that case, like, do a lot of testing, because if you don't know if something's working, then you might get stuck. Just keep testing it until it works and then move on. Don't just leave it as it is, because you forget to go back to it. So he's got a little bit of catch up here. So the smaller I make that, the slower he'll catch up with the mouse. So there's 0.1. Okay, test it. Testing takes up like a lot of your time, probably 30% of your development time. So there we go, he's moving kind of slow to the mouse pointer, which is nice to see. We could also spit out his speed. So let's just do debug on the speed. And to get the speed, sorry, let's go back to this. What this does is it's interpolating between the old position and the new position. So the old position is the previous position that he was, and the new position is the new mouse position that it reads. So if you're at 0 and the mouse is at 100, it will interpolate between those at 0.1. So it will basically move 10 towards the mouse on that cycle, because it's getting multiplied, the difference getting multiplied by 0.1 basically, and it does that each frame. So if I make it really slow, it'll be a lower value that it moves, therefore a lower speed. Yeah, so let's check his speed. So we do a draw text. I'm just going to look to see where I want to be next. So 20, 0, 20, 40, miss 60, let's go 80, so 0 by 80, and do the string of, and it's not just speed, but we'll see what that does. So what is speed? I think I want h speed and y speed, but we'll see what speed does. Maybe good enough. So you say speed's left at 0. So speed isn't this. Speed's another thing that we can use. So is it mouse speed? Is there such a thing as mouse speed? So this is what you need to do if you don't know. We don't have mouse speed. We've got mouse, wheel down, wheel up, button, last button, X and Y. So these are all pretty useful. So it's not that. So what it is h speed. Is it h speed? H speed without a space. There we go, h speed. What I'm going to do is just h speed plus v speed. I'm just going to do /2 to get an average generic speed. So I'll put them in there. So h speed, v speed divided by 2. And that will give me something, just to see how fast he's moving. Yeah, it doesn't change. So I guess because these are like built-in variables anyway, so we try to measure his speed to see how fast he's going. We could use his last position compared to his new position. So one way to do that is to, I mean, why it's important to see his speed anyway, it could be useful. So, so mouse, last position, no. or x previous, x previous, x previous, minus, so to get the speed it would be x minus x previous plus y minus y previous. Let's try that. Again, this might not work. It's been a while since I tried these slightly experimental things, but it's all useful information that you could use. There we go. We're getting a reading. It does go into the negative sometimes, but now we can see his position, his speed. Now, if we want to limit that, so x equals lerp this to this. Right, so it's going from the x position. Okay. Mouse X. You can do some clever stuff there, like, to get him to move at certain speeds, and you can limit his speed. We could say if h speed is greater than 5, h speed equals 5. Don't know if this will work because some variables are read-only and there's no way of telling, so I can't write in this speed, but I can try it. You see a test all the time, and he's still going really fast. So yeah, we can't write in fact, those speeds didn't do anything as far as we know, so they don't have any effect anyway. X equals so mouse X. So it's getting a bit too taxing in my brain. I'm just going to leave it as is. Like if I did want a system where I could limit his speed, I'd figure out another way, probably through looking at his current position, where I want to go, working out the distance, and working out the speed, and then like putting a limiter on that, and then adding that to his new position. So that's the logic. You have to sort of think of these things through first, and you might want to do it in paper, like limit speed. So get position, get new position from mouse, work out distance, and move at speed. Now there is another way to do this actually, now that I think about it. We could look at the target. So what we'll do is I do target X and target Y. We don't need that. We don't really need that. Keep these because we might come back to it. And I'm just showing you all this detailed stuff because this is how intricate code can get. And I'm keeping it simple in terms of keeping you limited to this amount of information, dealing with the mouse, using alert, using strings, using some of these variables. I don't want to give you too much, so I'm getting as much detail as I can get with these. Sorry if it's a bit boring, but this is the kind of grunt work that you'll find yourself in when you're making proper code. So we got some way of moving the character but limiting the speed. So every cycle we can actually move towards a point, and I'm going to say that mouse X and mouse Y, and the speed to be a fixed speed, maybe 10, right? So it's always going to move at 10, even if the mouse is miles away, which will make the character move a bit better. Oh, we got an issue. Okay, not set before reading it. Character, oh, I just did it. Misspellings. Okay, Mosu, I think that was. Yeah, M-O-U-S-E. So bear in mind some of your spelling mistakes might be in these drag and drop functions, or they might be in code. So there, I've just showed you a drag and drop using a move towards point, which I always find useful. It's good for making enemies come towards you. Okay, so he's moving at a fixed speed of 10. And you can kind of see it there, it's averaging out roughly at 10. The only thing is he constantly jitters about at 10. So we can do other checks. We can do this variable here. Is it this variable? I think it's this variable. So if a condition is true, or value is true, then do the next thing. So if point distance, distance, distance of the player, x and y, x, y, so the player's position to the mouse position, mouse y, is 20 or greater. So it's just looking at the distance between his last position and the mouse position. Point distance is greater than 20. Now you need to watch for this because you don't get any syntax errors as you work. You'll get it after. If it's greater than or equal to 20, then do the next thing. You might want to put it in these brackets to make sure it does the next thing, or anything else you want to put in there, because it will only ever execute the next one thing. Unless you put it in here, you can put other things in between here, like more code, you know, do a dance, whatever it might be. If code was that simple. And we run this. So now he's only going to move. He's jittering about much more because he's still, let's see, his position didn't update, and I don't know, the mouse changed or something. If value is greater than 20, then move towards the mouse. I should do an else, possibly else. I could bring one of these in and just say direction 0, speed 0. And if that works, I'd be amazed. So a lot of this is testing, and I forget if these things work or not, but let's see. There we go. So he's stopped. So if that's false, then yeah, basically he's stopping. This is a good way of moving a character around a kind of point and click adventure game. But just now he's following the mouse. So if I want to make him only move when I tell him to move, like a click, I'll just do go equals false, right? Go equals false. Can't spell. Try to type too fast. Go equals false, and I'll just put a note for moving. I'll just do mouse click controlled. Go equals false initially. So when he's created, he's not to go anywhere. I can go into the draw debug info. I can do some code in here if I want, but I'm just going to use that for draw debug stuff. Especially I can get rid of that because that wasn't debug stuff. Get rid of that. That was just talking. Okay, I'll add some more code. So what actually happens in this little action draw is like each frame, each draw frame, like takes the computer 60 times a second it can draw this full screen, right? So it will loop around this code 60 times a second if your computer can handle it and there's not too much going on. It will do as much as it can, right? That's what your frame rate is. Your frames per second is the amount of times it can do this drawing. And there's various draw calls. This is a draw call, etc. I mean, it draws something. Okay, something similar to that. It might be down to memory and other details, but that's basically what it is. So we'll execute some code here as well as doing all this other stuff. And we're going to make it only go when I click. So if mouse, M-O-U-S-E, if I can spell right, underscore. I'm going to do mouse check button pressed. So if I press the left mouse button, so that's MB underscore mouse button underscore left. So if that happens, you just put in some curly braces here. If that happens, what do? We make go equals true. Right. If go equals true, he's going to always follow the mouse pointer like before. I'll show you what I mean. So initially he will be in false, go equals false, and he won't move, theoretically, unless I've still wait a minute. Alright, so he's following the mouse around still. So let's figure out why. It's because we don't have a check for it. He's moving towards point even if this is the case. So I want another check in front of this. If go equals true. So if go equals true, then do this thing and the next thing. But I will use the braces here because that does help bring in the code. And you can code this way perfectly fine, but it becomes a little bit hard to read. There's a lot of space in between here, and you know, it's fine, but it's not perfect. And I could do this by some method in here, but it's good to show you a bit of the drag and drop. So if go is equal to true, start doing this. If point distance is less than such and such, then start moving, do a dance, which is just me just putting a comment in there. Else, stay still, which is direction 0. I mean, it doesn't matter the direction, but you want it to be the facing direction, which is 0. That's pointing right. If you've got like an object that can turn, the top-down game, for this kind of guy it wouldn't work right because he would spin on his axis. Anyway, speed equals 0, which means he won't move anywhere. So that basically stops him. And that's all if go equals true. Now if go equals false, that's basically when he gets to his destination, which is also the same as this else case where he stops. We want go to equal false. So I'm going to pop that variable in here, and I can say, you know, this is to set a variable, that's to test a variable, and that's to draw a variable. So we're going to set the variable of go, which already exists, to false. Okay, so equals false, and that should work. So save that, play the game. He stays still. If I click, he moves towards the mouse, follows the mouse until he gets close enough to it, so I can actually change my mind. Why don't you go to here? No, go here. Oh, right, and then he got there. That's not really how it works. Normally you click and you just go straight to the point where you clicked, instead of following the mouse silly, because you might want to, you know, get distracted by something else, like, okay, you go here, you go there, you go there. So him following the mouse is a little bit like a fly to that smelly stuff that comes out your bottom. Okay, so I don't want that. I want him to stop wherever I click. So I need to make a recording of his position. So TX is what I like to use for target X, where he's to go to, but I'll just call it target or go to X. Go to X equals 0 to initialize it, and go to Y equals 0. I think that reads better, so, and I'll just put location to go to. Now when I click the mouse button, which was under this code, I better put some comment up here, and I put user input. User input, mouse check button left, go equals true, and go to X equals the mouse X at that point. Whenever you click the button, it will take a recording of it. And go to Y equals mouse Y, it takes a recording of that. So you've got your location where you clicked. Go equals true, go to X and Y. So now, instead of going towards the mouse at this point, it wants to go to X, and it wants to go to Y. And I don't think we have to check the distance anymore because he's not, let's just say he's just to go to that point, and that's it. So if we take this out, let me just like do Control X because I might want it back. In fact, do need to check there because he wanted to stop. But if you can just go to that point and then get to it, if he's close enough to it, then you stop anyway. Let's just keep it in, but we have to change these now to go to X and go to Y. The little booby there and booby there. Okay, so it's the same deal, but he's only going to the recorded positions. So now if I click, you go to that point, he doesn't follow the mouse, and he goes to that point, and this point, and he stays still. So that's basically how that works. Alright, so to recap, we've got character, sprite, okay. We've got some code here that sets everything up. We initialize your message, string hello Patreons, frame 0 for the frame number, and go to say whether he's to go somewhere or not. And this could be the start of a kind of state machine if you think about it, whether he's to go or not, whether he's to jump or not, whether he's jumping, whether he's allowed to do certain things and so on. These are the locations he's to go to. This is drawing some of the information, including the message, and that can easily be changed from this point. Hello Patreons, and I'll do some extra exclamation marks, and we'll see that when we play. And if go equals to true, and the way that is set is through use input. If mouse check button left, go equals true, and he'll go to those points. Yeah, and we can interrupt this anytime. Every time you press the left button, then it will set go to true, because as soon as he gets to his destination, it gets set to false. Don't know if we can actually interrupt it. Let me just check, because that's something interesting as well. Oh, what's happened here? There we go. Run the game. We click, and yeah, we can easily interrupt that. So that's fine. He goes to a point. We decide he can't go there, and he moves really fast. That's easy enough to change. It's just the speed that he moves at. In fact, let's make a variable for that. We could say speed, which I like to use SPD, so it doesn't use the red version, which is when you type in speed, it's a built-in variable that you can use, and I think it is per object. So you can use speed, but I just like to use SPD. Speed equals 6, and I'll say his speed, clear speed. Use SPD, and then when we move him towards that point, we'll use SPD. So he's going to move at a speed of 6. And I think we do see that message updated with all the exclamation marks. Interesting stuff. And he moves a bit nicer now. So it's point and click, he moves to the mouse location. And you can have him going around objects and things if you wanted, but that's more advanced stuff. So there you have it. Let's just do one more little thing I wanted to show you. Edit sprite. I'm just going to duplicate that by doing Control C, Control V. And I'll just have him blinking by picking this color. I'm just going to draw over there. Oh, let's just pick a little bit of the light color. Draw here. It's got shiny eyelids. And we can see, we can preview blinking. Let's also pick a little bit of the brown just to do the bottom of the eyes there. So that's him blinking. You can preview this. I like to preview it at a very slow speed, so 10. You can see him blinking there. And one way to control that is through our frame value, FRM. Use input, draw debug, use input. So every time we press the left mouse button, he goes there. We could also do if 1 is equal to iRandom. Now iRandom is a random integer, and it will be between 0 and 1. So if 1 equals 1, it will do the next thing. If 1 equals 0, it won't. And the next thing I want to do is to make frame equal 1. And let's call that blinking. And then I'll just do an else frame equals 0. Not blinking. Okay, let's just give it a bit more chance. So let's do 6. If 1 equals iRandom 6, he'll blink, so he doesn't blink that often. How often is 1 going to be a random 0 to 6? Let's see. And we should see him blinking. He blinks very, very quickly. So I'm going to do one more thing. Let's go to, if I go around to frame equals 1, so I don't want this to change so often. If I went to the frame equals blinking, else I'll just do if 1 equals iRandom 3. Now this is the likelihood of him not blinking anymore, so this he opens his eyes from the blinking stage. So if he gets into this blinking stage, which doesn't happen too often, that's the way to think of it, then set the frame to 1, his blinking frame. If it doesn't equal that, then there's a chance it will come out of it, but not always. So he shouldn't blink as frequently. Plus the room's going at 60 frames per second, so that process becomes quite fast. So there we go, we got a nice natural looking blink. He's kind of fluttering his eyes quite often, so the likelihood of it happening should be less. So I'll put that to 30. And then the time to come out of it is how long he's keeping his eyes closed for. So he could have a little flutter or hold his eyes closed a bit longer. There we go. And that looks pretty natural. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more little thing for the drawing of the sprite. So we'll draw debug info. I'll just do draw stuff because we draw the sprite as well. Now there is draw sprite ext, which is extended. We have more options with this. So we've got sprite, subimage, X and Y, but we also have scale. I'm just going to scale them up 3 times. So basically every pixel becomes 3 pixels. His rotation is 0. His color is white, C underscore white, and his alpha is 1. And they're pretty much defaults, but I have to declare them there of what they are. Otherwise they'll get changed. Okay. Save that. I think there might be one more thing I want to show you to make them change direction. There we go. He's blinking away there. And that looks pretty natural. It's perfectly random as well. You could make his mouth change. You could make his mouth into a separate object. In fact, we could take his eyes and his mouth, make them 3 different sprites. Well, the eyes themselves would be like one sprite, the mouth could be another, and we could have them changing at random. so that he's got expressions and stuff. But yeah, that's a bit fun. Now, a couple more things I want to show you before we wrap this up for the Gamemaker beginner introduction type thing. Then I want to show you, if you go to the Windows tab here, change the graphics, turn off the interpolate between colours, and allow the player to resize the game window. A couple of things I like. So there we go, he's much crisper now. Moving around, and we can also resize the game window. If you want them to face the opposite direction when going left and such, I'm just going to do a debug, not on the speed anymore. Draw stuff, draw text, experience. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the string of direction. And I'll show you what this does. So when the character moves, the direction is inherited. His default direction is 0, which is right. Up is 90, left is 180, and down is 270. So there we can see that kind of thing. We can detect his direction each time, but it goes back to 0 because of when it stops. When he stops, it goes back to 0. Now we can just hard code that as direction, so that it never changes. Direction is a built-in variable that you can access. One thing I want to do is make them flip. Now that we're using the extended drawing on the sprite, I'm just going to make this times facing. And facing, oh, that's going to be multiplied. Facing is going to be 1 or -1, and that way it'll flip them horizontally. That should actually be, let's cut that and put that there. So that's his X scale. So facing, we need to set that up. Facing equals 1, which is facing right. And then we can either do it when we click. We can check to see if the click value is less in the X. That's probably the easiest way. Let's just do that. Go to X equals mouse X, and if we say if go to X, if mouse X is less than go to X. So wherever we click, sorry, I'm getting confused. Let's see, no, if it's his, oh my god, if go to X is less than X, so X being his current position and go to X being the new X position, go to X is less than X, then we want facing to be -1, else facing equals 1. That's just a nice way of doing if on one. So if go to X less than X, else facing. Okay, I should use these curly braces, otherwise it will get confused. And what's wrong here? If go to X is less than X facing 1, else, oh, should be an equals there, facing is -1. We don't need those braces, but they do help make it readable. This is a one-line if statement. It carries out 1 times the next function. If you want to do more than one thing, use braces and use semicolons to do something else, like facing equals -1, and then you'd have something like turned equals, turned equals true, or whatever it might be, or whatever you want to do. So braces on if it's more than one thing, and if it's not, you can take them away if it's just one thing, and it only executes one next thing. And you don't need any colons after this or anything. I've got so used to where you need them, you don't need them after any if things. You only need them to separate things between themselves. But in Gamemaker 1.4, you can get away with not using them, but it's good practice to use them. So that's that. Let's make sure that he does the thing we want him to do, which was turn or flip horizontally when we change direction. It goes right, and then left, you can see he's changed his direction, and everything else is intact. And that pretty much wraps it up for this one. So hope you enjoyed this little Gamemaker tutorial on making a character, using some A sprite for make a guy, bring them in, making a couple of sprites, setting up the mask if you want them to collide with stuff, although we've not really done any of that, that's fine. Save that. And yeah, just if you're a Patreon, then you'll get all these files, and I look forward to the next episode where I maybe show you some Unity or Unreal Engine 4. Thank you. Bye for now.